And now it's the Saturday Morning Jukebox Legends Spotlight.
And Billboard magazine calls our next guest the most successful love singer of the rock era. For a 10-year period, he had more #1 records than any other solo male artist. This gentleman has discovered no boundaries in his career, having appeared on the big and small screens, has had his life story published, and these days, he's one of the few stars who is capable of headlining in Vegas, venues all over the world, and even in places like Manistee. We're at the Little River Casino, where he'll be visiting in our neighborhood very soon. We're glad to welcome into the Legend Spotlight the incomparable Bobby Vinton.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Rick. What an intro. Can you do it again?
We'll be glad to send you a copy of that, Bobby.
No. I just want to wake everybody up. I'm delighted to be talking to you gentlemen on the air. Looking forward to coming up to that beautiful part of the country. And what else can I say?
Well, Bobby, you grew up in what's considered where all the friendly people come from, Pennsylvania. And I have to think that the fact that your dad, Stan Vinton, was an accomplished band leader greatly influenced your life.
Yeah, I was playing in my dad's band when I was 15 years old. We'd play at the Moose Club and at the Elks Club. It was a little band, but we used to think it sounded like Glenn Miller. And as you know, over the years, I had a theater in Branson, Missouri, where I did have the Glenn Miller Orchestra on stage with me. So I love the big band sound. We'll be doing a lot of that at the casino next month. That's how I grew up, the music that I enjoy doing.
And actually, while your dad was a band leader, you kind of broke off and were a band leader yourself. And I don't know if it was competition or not, but your dad's band is touring and your band is touring over as well. That had to be an interesting situation, wasn't it?
Well, the trouble is, it was called the Stan Vinton Band, and my real name is Stanley. And I'm Stan Vinton Jr. All of a sudden, I became very popular, and my father came to me. He says, "Wait a minute, they're calling for Stan Vinton, but they want you instead of me." So he says, you better change your name to your middle name, which is Robert. He says, "Why don't you call yourself Bobby?" It was like Bobby Darin, Bobby V, Bobby Rydell. There's all these Bobbies. It's like a great teenage idol name, and so that's why I went from Stanley to Bobby. But can you imagine being a teenage idol with a name like Stanley?
You go on, you continue your education. Actually, as you're working with the band, you're raising money so that you can go to college, and you go to Duquesne University, where you major in musical composition. So obviously you stay in the musical field, and also while you're there, Bobby, you get a chance to really hone up on some of the other instruments and wind up playing several more instruments, I guess, right?
Yeah, I have a degree. I could have been a teacher. I was practice teaching in some of the schools in Pittsburgh when I was 19 years old. I always loved music, and I wanted to share my musical ability with other young people if I could, if I didn't make it in show business. Then what happened was, with my own band, I would accompany all the stars that would come to the Pittsburgh area, like Brenda Lee or Chubby Checker, all the early stars of the early 60s. They would need a band. Today, everything is self-contained. They have, 3 guitars in a band, and that's it. But back in the 60s, when a singer would go on tour, they would need a big band. They used to have saxophones and trumpets and trombones, and I was a musical arranger. I could write music for the big bands so it sounded like their records. So that's what I would do. And then Dick Clark heard about me, this young guy that could write the music for the rock and roll shows, so he made me his band leader. Wow. So I became the band leader for Dick Clark's rock and roll tours. People like Fabian, I went on tour with him, and Brenda Lee, and all those early 60 stars. I was the band leader, so I got to know the music business. I got to know what was #1, what the public liked, and I was making a big band album. I was going to be the teenage Glenn Miller. But what's happening, everybody was so much into rock and roll, the record company was dropping me, and they says, "Look, big bands are over with." And I said, "Well, look, cut me as a singer. I sing a little bit. I've got a song called Mr. Lonely that I wrote. There's another song called Roses Are Red. I bet you I could sell enough records to make more big band albums." I have no idea that they'd be #1 records.
Lonely, I'm Mr. Lonely. I have nobody for my own. I'm so lonely. I'm Mr. Lonely. Wish I had someone to call on the phone. away from home, through no wish of my own. That's why I'm lonely. I'm Mr. Lonely. I wish that I could go back home. Letters, never a letter. I get no letters in the mail. I've been forgotten, yeah, forgotten. Oh, how I wonder, how is it I feel? Now I'm a soldier, a lonely soldier, away from home, through no wish of my own. That's why I'm lonely. I'm Mr. Lonely. I wish that I could go back home.
And we'll be right back with more of our conversation with Bobby Vinton, ready to enjoy the Legend Spotlight, shining brightly on the incomparable Bobby Vinton.
Your persistence to shift gears there was what really kind of saved your career and sent you in another direction. So there was no doubt in your mind, Bobby, that, hey, I can step up in front of the microphone and become a singer, I guess, right?
Well, yeah, no, I was so much of a musician. If you ever see a true musician, I was into Maynard Ferguson and that type of music. I had no idea that I could sing and make pop records. In fact, all these years later, it's still hard for me to believe that I had #1 records not only here but around the world, in various countries around the world. It's hard to believe that. But I was blessed. Believe me, there's a God. I went to church and I prayed,
yeah,
and it came through for me.
You mentioned Roses Are Red, and that is your first #1 that takes off and just does a monster business for you.
A long, long time ago, on graduation day, you handed me your book. I sang this way: roses are red, my love, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, my love, but not as sweet as you. We dated through high school, and when the big day came, I wrote into your book next to my name: roses are red, my love, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, my love, but not as sweet as you. Then I went far away and you found someone new. I read your letter, dear, and I wrote back to you: roses are red, my love, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, my love, good luck, may God bless you. Is that your little girl? She looks a lot like you. Someday some boy will write in her book too: roses are red, my love, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, my love, but not as sweet as you.
Talk to us about that time and maybe even hearing that song on the radio for the first time. Was that a thrill?
Well, actually, the record wasn't accepted initially. Nobody really wanted to play Roses Are Red. They said it was old. I remember one disc jockey says it's too fast to dance slow to, and it's too slow to dance fast to. So I was in trouble. So in the Pittsburgh area where I'm from, I decided I would send a dozen of roses to every DJ in the Pittsburgh area. So I got into my car. I had dozens of roses with the Roses Are Red record inside. I went to the first radio station, and as you call them those days, they used to have the glass windows where you could look in and watch everybody playing the records. And I was standing there with roses for the DJ, and he's looking at me. He thinks I'm in love with him. So I got a little nervous. I said, wait a minute. I got to make another approach. So as I'm standing there smiling at him with roses for you, a beautiful, sexy girl comes walking down with the greatest legs I ever saw. I stopped her, and I said, honey, would you do me a favor, walk in there and hand him these roses? I said, because I'm kind of embarrassed to do that. So I can see her walking in with these great legs. I see her handing the roses. This DJ is smiling, and believe me, you guys would have been smiling too. Anyway, she played the record, and she kind of liked it because she had a chance to talk on the radio, and I thanked her, and I said, look, there's a couple of more radio stations. Would you be kind enough to do the same thing for me? So I drove her around, and she walked into the stations, and everybody played the record once. And next thing I know, in Pittsburgh, it became a big hit because people played it. Now, get this. 25 years later, I'm headlining in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand Hotel. And I figure I want to do something for this girl because I'm talking about her like I'm talking now. Mm-hmm. I says, I'm going to run a contest with the radio stations in Pittsburgh. This beautiful girl, wherever you are, you're probably married, you probably have a bunch of kids. I want to invite you to Vegas for the week as my guest, the MGM Grand Hotel, so forth and so on. So they run a contest, they can't find her. And I remember the DJ called me. He says, would you really recognize her? And I told him I wouldn't recognize the face, but I would recognize those legs.
That is some awesome marketing, and it just shows what timing can mean in a life. Thank goodness she was there. Thank goodness you had a great idea like that.
Timing is a lot. You know, like I said, I've been lucky. I made a lot of right moves. In fact, with the industry, a lot of the guys from that era who know me and see how well I live and everything about it, they say, God, you're really smart. Mm. I tell them, look, I'm really not that smart. It's just I'm not stupid. I mean, if you see today, so many of these big stars today, they kind of do stupid things. I just try not to do stupid things that you can be around a lot longer.
And Bobby, what an amazing career it's been, and we've just scratched the surface. John and I will be right back with more of the Saturday Morning Jukebox and our Legend Spotlight as we discuss the life and career of Bobby Vinton. Jon Russell and Rick Hickman back with you for another segment in our conversation with our special guest this Saturday morning, Mr. Bobby Vinton. And Bobby, you grew up in Pennsylvania, you're deeply involved in music, but really you got to grow up in what is considered one of the real golden eras of this country. Describe what it was like just growing up during that period of time.
Well, it was unbelievable. I mean, I'm really glad I grew up in the 60s and not today. I wouldn't want to grow up today. I feel sorry for the young people growing up today. It's a different world. It's a different time, and maybe they won't know the difference. But back then, things were simple, you know. Blue Velvet, music like that was important. People fell in love. People, if you even listen to the singers, they were mellow, and there was something special about it. Today, everybody seems like they're angry. Everybody's screaming and hollering like they're angry. They lost that sentimentality to the approach of music. It was just a good time to grow up. I mean, there was less drugs. I think today drugs influence so much going on. They legalized pot in Colorado. That's got to affect young people. I mean, it's got to. Let's be reasonable. Sure. I mean, I've been around people who are on pot and people who aren't, and as they grew up, I see their lives. The people who weren't on pot have a much better, happier life than the people who were on pot. Maybe those are exceptions, but that's the way I see it, and that's my experience. You know, just times were different, and the music, the movies, religion, government, everything. The world is changing.
Yeah, it seems like some of the things that we miss is just common decency, gentleness, an appreciation for one another, and even just politeness.
Well, whatever it is, I can't solve those problems. I mean, I wish I could.
Right.
But it is different, and like I said, that's me. I'm in the 60s. I grew up then. Those were my years, and of course, that's what I live by.
You also served a stint in the Army. Where were you stationed?
I was Fort Knox, Kentucky. Yeah, Fort Dix, New Jersey. I really enjoyed the Army. I mean, I was very fortunate. There was no wars going on. I didn't have to shoot anybody, but just Army life was good to me. I think they should still have a draft, because when I went in, I was kind of a young, cocky guy like most guys are when they get out of school and they know everything. And it did a lot for me. It grew me. I grew up, and I found out that we are kind of all even. Everybody that you think out there has got something over you. You find out they're scared, they're as nervous as you are. It's just a good thing. I think everyone should go spend some time in the military. Including our politicians.
Especially.
Like that.
Front of the line. What did any of your involvement with the Army serve as inspiration for any of your later hits?
Well, I wrote Mr. Lonely when I was in the Army. I had a sergeant who would tease me. I would, tell him that I liked music, and I wish I could go into show business, and I had a band when I was a kid, and I'm going to get back to my band. And he said, you ought to write a song about a lonely soldier. And it was a simple melody, a simple idea at the time. Once again, when I recorded it, I had no idea that it would be up for the Grammys. In fact, what happened was when Roses Are Red was popular, I recorded Roses Are Red and Mr. Lonely the same day. Now we're looking to what record to put out next, and I'm riding in the car, and they play Roses Are Red, and all of a sudden Mr. Lonely comes on by another singer who's with the label, and they think he's going to be the big star, and I'm going to be a fly-by-night artist, and I'll never have another. This is about a record company that never had a number one record. All of a sudden, they have a number one record, Epic Records.
Sure.
So I call them up. I says, hey, I just heard my music, my track, everything that I wrote, put another singer's voice on there. What happened? He says, well, let's face it, you're a band leader. You're not going to make it as a singer. This guy has a great chance. And I said, God, I can't believe. That's when I grew up.
Right.
And found out what show business was all about. I said, you would do that to me after I just sold millions of records for you guys? Wow. He said, nah, you're a band leader. You're not a singer. So anyway, 2 years later, I'm coming out with an album of the greatest hits. And you're supposed to have, in those days, 12 cuts. Blue on Blue, Blue Velvet, There I Said It Again. And we had 11. I said, Mr. Lonely was never a hit for me. It should have been. Now let me put it into the greatest hits album. And sure enough, radio stations started to play it out of the album, and it had to be released, and that's how Mr. Lonely came about. Every record has been a fight.
I was going to say.
Everything has been a fight. It's a funny thing. I had a drummer with me who was with the Bob Hope tours. If you remember, Bob Hope used to go to Vietnam and entertain and bring like movie stars, Miss America, and the big bands, and he put on shows for the Christmas. So my drummer used to be with the Les Brown Band and went on these tours. He says he's on a plane flying to Vietnam, and in the back is Raquel Welch exercising back and forth on the floor, back and forth. So he walks up to Raquel Welch. He says to her, why are you working so hard and exercising on a floor in a plane going to Vietnam? She stood up with her beautiful body. She looked at him. She said, do you think this just happens?
Good answer.
And I kind of use that as a motto in life, because nothing just happens.
And Bobby, it's obvious that at least one other song was inspired by your military career and your time in the Army, and that's one of our all-time favorite hits.
I'm coming home, I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Home, I'm coming home from across the sea. Home, I'm coming home, no more marching and fighting for me. I am a soldier, a coming home soldier. No purple heart do I wear on my chest. I'm just a soldier, a coming home soldier. I know that I've done my best. I'm coming home, I'm coming home, I'm coming home. The girl I left behind has been waiting patiently. She said, mine, 'cause I was helping to keep our land free. I am a soldier, a coming home soldier. No purple heart do I wear on my chest. I'm just a soldier, a coming home soldier. I know that I've done my best. I'm coming home, I'm coming home, I'm coming home.
As we rejoin our conversation with Bobby Vinton.
Your hard work pays off. I mean, you're a white hot during that time. And then this group from Liverpool comes over and really changes things. And all of a sudden, a lot of people disappear. I mean, the Frankie Avalons and people like that, they disappear. Obviously, the musical landscape changes. But talk to us about that as you being a part of it and you able to keep right on going during the whole craziness of Beatlemania.
Well, back in those days, being that I was number one and making a lot of money, and it's just like Elvis had Colonel Parker. I tried to get Colonel Parker to manage me when Elvis was in Vegas. I was with Colonel Parker. Hey, how about me too? He says, no, I just want to, because I figured if you were with Colonel Parker, you could even be bigger than you are.
Yeah.
So now I'm big, and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones come over here, and they want my manager, because financially he was kind of very good with the figures, and he knew how to multiply and make more money out of more money. So they came, and if you can imagine, I would go to his office. One day there was Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. The next day there were the Beatles, and he handled the three of us. His name was Alan Klein. Mick Jagger asked me, he says, does this bother you, us coming over here and taking all the play from you? And I told him, I said, well, in a way, you've eliminated my competition. Because in those days, a song like There I Said It Again or Blue Velvet, it would sell 2 million copies, but 1 million would be to the teenagers and 1 million would be to the adults. I said, you've taken the teenagers away, but I still have the adults, and I can still sell 1 million records. But all my other teenage idols who do rock and roll, they're in trouble. So you've eliminated my competition. And, I mean, I was friendly with them, and they were friendly towards me. Like I said, when the Beatles came to America at Shea Stadium the first time, I went over there with the Rolling Stones to be with the Beatles. And I'll tell you, I never saw excitement like that. I mean, I did shows, but I never saw Shea Stadium full of people screaming and hollering. And I mean, it was exciting times, believe me. It was just, well, it was my generation, and
Sure.
It was something special, something that I don't know. Well, I guess today the young people, when they go to their shows, they enjoy that as much as I enjoyed those days.
Now, you were married during this time. You got married fairly young. Dolly is still with you, your wife, since 1962. And I guess the question I want to ask you, Bobby, is it's one thing to be footloose and fancy-free on the road and the Bobby Soxers throwing themselves at you and all that stuff, but here you are, a married man. How do you balance all that and the temptation and stuff like that on the road during that time?
I don't know. There's a lot of temptation. When I write my book, you'll read all about it.
But you were able to stay strong and steady on course, huh?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
50 years of marriage. There's certainly some proof there. But, of course, the management probably didn't want folks to always know that you were married and thinking that it might hurt record sales.
Well, yeah, in the early 60s, the Frankie Avalons and all those people, you're not supposed to get married because the teenagers weren't going to buy your records, so nobody really bragged about it that much. You just kind of didn't emphasize it. Just like today, it probably doesn't matter as much today, but back then, apparently it did matter, at least in the eyes of the record companies.
It was amazing that apparently every teenager thought that they had a chance at marrying Annette Funicello or Ricky Nelson or Bobby Vinton. So if we kept that quiet...
I felt like that about Raquel Welch. Yeah. I felt like that about Raquel Welch. I hope she don't get married because maybe I'll have a chance.
I love you. There's nothing to hide. It's better than burning inside. I love you. No use to pretend. There, I've said it again. I've said it. What more can I say? phrase that would sum up all that I feel for you. But what good are phrases? The thought that amazes is you love me, and it's heavenly. Forgive me for wanting you so, but one thing I want you to know, I've loved you since heaven knows when. There, I've said it again. Forgive me for wanting you so, but one thing I want you to know, I've loved you since heaven knows when. There, I've said it again.
There, I've said it again. A classic hit by Bobby Vinton.
You reinvent yourself, Bobby. Like you said, during the Beatles thing, you wind up saying, okay, half my audience is gone, but now I'm going to concentrate on the other half. And you move through the 60s, and music kind of changes, and into the 70s, and you have this hit called My Melody of Love, which has become kind of a theme song for you and just reinforces everything. You kind of reach into, you said nothing ever easy happens to you. You kind of reach in your own pocketbook and again, spend money on promotion to get that going too, right?
Yeah, well, what happened in those years, when things quiet off in America, you kind of go to other countries. So I went to South America, I went to Tokyo, I went to Korea, I went to different countries, went to Italy, and I had a good-sized record in Italy. Io non posso crederti quando dici che mi lascerai. I went to Germany, and I had these hits, and in my show, I do a medley of songs that I record in different languages and had a hit with. And my mother, sitting in the audience, is Polish, said, Synek, po co ty nie śpiewa po polsku? Why don't you sing a song in Polish? I said, come on, Mom. A rock and roll station would never play. First of all, they don't want to play Bobby Vinton today at all because it's not cool. Second of all, if I come with a Polish song, I could be arrested, man. I mean, they could well, I don't know what they're going to do to me. She says, how do you know? You never wrote one. She said, come on, moja droga, moja droga. It means my loved one. So I start singing, all right, moja droga, ja cię kocham. I had no idea, once again, that would have the effect that it did. But it was a phenomenal record. It gave the Polish people pride. I went to Poland. I sang it in Poland while it was still a communist country.
I'm looking for a place to go so I can be all alone from thoughts and memories, so that when the music plays, I don't go back to the days when love was you and me. Oh, wish I had a place to hide all my sorrow, all my pride. I just can't get along, 'cause the love once so fine keeps on hurting all the time. Where did I go wrong? Oh, moja droga, ja cię kocham. Means that I love you so. Moja droga, ja cię kocham.
the communist government called me in. I thought I was never coming home. They wanted to know why I was there, what I was trying to do.
Wow.
The next thing I know, in Chicago, on WGN, we had the Bobby Vinton Polish telephone where we raised millions of dollars. And we sent it into Poland. I went over there. I was supposed to meet Lech Walesa. They arrested him that day. I mean, if they ever make a movie of my life, we got a lot of things to talk about. It was a special record, and it's hard to say, but at the time, just like our government today, doesn't really want to get involved with other countries and their politics. So back in the 70s, America didn't want to get involved with Poland and the communist government and Russia. But that song seemed to be a link. All of a sudden, there was a little tie between America and Poland. In fact, when the Pope came in, and he's the real reason why the communist government eventually diminished in Poland, he had a lot to do with it in the church. I was there. I greeted the Pope when he landed in Warsaw. And I never saw an event like that in my life. I mean, there were roses for miles and miles on the roads to greet him, and it was one of the highlights of my life, being there with him and seeing Poland with spirit and pride. It was just, when that song happened, I figured all these other records I made didn't mean a thing. Roses are red meat or blue velvet, but this song, it put smiles on people's faces.
You know, one of the great things about having fame is the opportunity to take part in events like that, things that are life-changing, great memories. And one of the opportunities you had was to appear on the big movie screens, and there was a little-known star that got to appear in a couple of movies along with Bobby Vinton, a guy named John Wayne.
Yeah. I got this movie with John Wayne because I look like his son. There was a part in the movie where I'm supposed to be his son, and I look like his son, so they saw my album cover, and they picked me into this cover. Now, I want to get in with John Wayne. Being the promoter that I am, I want to get in with John Wayne. So I'm in Mexico. He sees me. He walks by. How you doing? Nice to have you. And he keeps on walking. I get a phone call. If you saw the movie Goodfellas, where I used to sing it to Copa, and I knew certain people in New York who wanted to help me, they called me. They says, hey, we're with John Wayne Jr. here in Yonkers. We found out about him. We're promoting him. We're giving him standing ovations. We're going to get him record deals. We're going to do all kind of things. And he said, being that you guys are helping me, I'm going to tell my father to help Bobby Vinton to be in the movies. So when they called me, I said, you don't do that, please. I said, you can't do this with John Wayne. I mean, you guys are nuts. Yeah, leave it alone. So they called me back the next day. Hey, is he helping you? I said, you're not helping. He's not even talking to me. He walked by. I said, he's not helping me. Who's this guy? He says, well, the son says I'm talking to my father, and he's going to put Bobby Vinton to make him a star. So finally, by the third day, I see John Wayne. He walks by me again. I said, hey, Duke, by the way, how's your son doing in New York? He's doing pretty good. He looks at me. He said, what? I said, your son in New York. He says, I have no son in New York who's a singer. I said, you have no son who's a singer in New York? He says, no, I heard about this guy. I'm not pleased, and I don't know how to stop him. I said, well, when I call my friends, I don't think you're going to hear about this guy anymore. He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, you see, Duke, I kind of wanted to get in with you, and I figure if they did this, you would do this for me. John Wayne, he looked at me, he says, you would put a low-down, dirty trick like that on me to get into the movies? And I says, you damn right I would. He says, well, in that case, let's go have a drink. From that day on, he became my buddy.
Oh, man.
We'd go to dinner every night. We'd go drinking on the weekends. I mean, he became like a very good friend. I mean, once again, I lucked into something. I mean, I had no idea which way that was going to go, but I figured I'd go for it.
You appeared in both of those movies. Big Jake and the Train Robbers. How was the movie-making experience for you?
Well, I like being on stage better. On stage, when I perform with my band and my hits and my lights, I can compete in my mind with any performer in the business. Right. When I'm making a movie with John Wayne and all these great actors, I'm not at that level. It takes years. I am on what I am on stage because of years and years. And movies, it just it wasn't right. But being on stage, performing live was what I wanted to do, what I could do the best.
The record business itself, we talked with Tommy James about, I think Roulette Records was a front for the mob and all sorts of the shady dealings that went on in the business. And as a businessman, people not getting paid, we talked with Leslie Gore, and for years he wasn't able to collect on royalties and stuff like that. Did you run into, I know you said every song was a struggle, but did you run into that whole,
No, see, I was with CBS, Epic and CBS. They were kind of honest. If you were with a big label, they cheated too. Everybody cheats with the books. Right. Everybody cheats, man. They pull something, but they can't do it as much. But when you were with these little labels like these folks you mentioned, they were with little labels that they played a lot of games. I was fortunate being with CBS, Sony today. Every time I sell a record, it shows up. In fact, I can go to my computer and dial in and see where I'm selling records today. Just phenomenal. You can't cheat.
Right.
It's a different world today.
Oh, you bet it is. Talk about today, bringing us up to today. Obviously, you're going to be in the Little River Casino here in the next little bit. The high energy, we always talk about your shows. Even though you've been at this thing forever, you still put on a pretty high energy show. How do you keep going, Bobby?
Well, I don't do that many, to tell you the truth. I maybe do 2 or 3 shows a month, and I save all my bullets for those shows.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah, if I had to go every day like I did at my theater in Branson, I had a theater in Branson for 10 years that I went twice a day for 9 months. In fact, it was so busy in Branson during certain seasons I would do 3 shows a day, 7 days a week. Oof. And after that, I said, hey, I got to start doing some living. So I do very little shows these days, and the ones that I do, I look forward to. I don't call it work. I call it play. Yeah. So many singers from my generation, I hear them sing it, and a lot of them don't sound like they used to because you can overdo it and lose your voice. And I think I sound better today than I did 20 years ago because health is everything, guys. Drink water. Think health.
She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet was the night, softer than satin was the light from the stars. She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet were her eyes, warmer than May her tender sighs. Love was ours, love I held tightly, feeling the rapture grow, like a flame burning brightly. But when she left, gone was the glow of blue velvet. But in my heart there'll always be precious and warm a memory through the years, and I still can see blue velvet through my tears. She wore blue velvet, but in my heart there'll always be precious and warm a memory through the years, and I still can see blue velvet through my tears.
What I'd like to ask, too, obviously you've had a successful marriage of over 5 decades, and I've got to think that friendships have been very solid with you, too. Going back even to your earliest years, who are some of the names we would recognize that have been people that you've been very fond of?
Well, Tony Orlando's a good friend of mine. We started out, in fact, he was 17 when I had the band and used to back him up on the Dick Clark shows. Connie Francis I knew well. There's, Frankie Valli is a good friend of mine. I'm so delighted for his success. I mean, you talk about striking just when you don't think anything's going to happen.
Right.
But most of the people, it's hard to be friends when you're a singer. I don't know why. It's like you guys trying to be friendly with your competition on the other radio.
Okay.
You know, I mean, you're friendly, but you just hope you do better.
Makes sense.
And if you're doing better, they kind of look at you one way, and if they're doing better, you look at them one way. So it's not that easy to be that close with your competition.
All right. The best-selling autobiography is The Polish Prince. He's been awarded over a dozen gold records and albums during his career and sold over 75 million records. Been honored by over 100 national organizations and more than a dozen mayors across our country for his unique contributions to ethnic communities. And he is one of the few that have earned a Bronze Star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And it has certainly been our honor and privilege to welcome into the Legend Spotlight, Mr. Bobby Vinton. Thank you.
Guys, nice talking to you. I enjoyed it probably better than you.
And he is coming to the Little River Casino next Saturday. Tickets available at lrcr.com. And he does put on an amazing show. He plays so many instruments, has performed in so many different languages. Little River Casino this coming Saturday. And John, we've certainly enjoyed our conversation with Bobby Vinton, and we look forward to the next time that we get to share the Legend Spotlight with you here on Classic Hits 98.3 WLCS.
Blue on blue, heartache on heartache, blue on blue, now that we are through. Blue on blue, heartache on heartache, and I find I can't get over losing you. I walk along the street we used to walk, 2 by 2 lovers pass, and as they're passing by, I could die, 'cause you're not here with me. Now the trees are bare, there's sadness in the air, and I'm as blue as I can be. Blue on blue, heartache on heartache, blue on blue, now that we are through. Blue on blue, heartache on heartache, and I find I can't get over losing you. Night after lonely night, we meet in dreams as I run to your side. You wait with open arms that now are closed to me. Through a veil of tears, your vision disappears, and I'm as blue as I can be. Blue on